Arkham City, a canvas of shadows, the nightmare factory. A city drenched in perpetual twilight. Arkham, a name whispered with fear and resignation. Towers clawed at the sky, their peaks lost in a swirling miasma of smog and rain. Neon signs, lurid and flickering, painted the wet streets with false promises. This was a city that had made a pact with darkness, its soul bartered for a fleeting illusion of power. Shadows stretched from the mouths of alleyways, hungry things swallowing the unwary. The air hung heavy, thick with the stench of decay and despair. A symphony of sirens wailed in the distance, a constant reminder of the chaos that festered beneath the city's skin. Even the rain seemed different here, a relentless, corrosive downpour that mirrored the city's own slow, inevitable decay. Arkham was a city that bred secrets, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred with every flickering streetlight. It was a city that could crush a man's spirit as easily as it could steal his life. And tonight, Arkham was poised to claim another soul. Detective Elias Black stood on the precipice of Arkham's abyss, staring into the city's reflection in a rain-streaked window. The city, with its labyrinthine streets and shadowy corners, seemed to whisper secrets only he could hear. His face, etched with the weariness of 1,000 sleepless nights, mirrored the city's own exhaustion. The neon lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across his features, highlighting the deep lines of fatigue and sorrow. Black had seen too much, felt too much. The city's darkness had seeped into his bones, leaving him a hollow shell of the man he once was. Every alleyway, every dimly lit street corner held memories of crimes unsolved and lives shattered. His trench coat, damp and heavy, clung to him like a shroud. It was more than just a piece of clothing. It was a shield against the relentless rain and the even more relentless despair that threatened to consume him. Cigarette smoke curled from his lips, a fleeting attempt to mask the bitter taste of despair that lingered there. Each drag was a momentary escape, a brief respite from the overwhelming sense of futility that gnawed at his soul. Black was a man haunted by his past, by the ghosts of cases he couldn't solve, by the faces of those he couldn't save. The photographs he kept were not just mementos, they were reminders of his failures, of the lives that slipped through his fingers. He carried the weight of their memories like lead weights in his gut, a constant reminder of his own mortality. Each photograph was a story unfinished, a life cut short, and a testament to the darkness that pervaded Arkham. Arkham had a way of doing that to a man, stripping away hope, and leaving behind a raw, exposed nerve of despair. The city's neon lights, once symbols of vibrancy, now seemed like cruel mockeries of the life that once was. Black had long since given up on finding redemption in this city. The bar stools and rain-soaked streets were his confessional, where he poured out his regrets and sorrows, knowing that the city would never absolve him. Now he simply clung to the remnants of his sanity, a lone beacon of reason in a sea of madness. His desk, cluttered with files and evidence, was a battlefield where he waged a never-ending war against the chaos that threatened to engulf him. He was a detective, yes, but more than that, he was a survivor, clinging to the wreckage of his life in a city determined to break him. Each step he took through the darkened streets was a testament to his resilience, a silent vow to never let the darkness Section 4. The collector's mark more than just missing objects. The Nightmare Factory. The missing objects gnawed at Black's mind, a relentless torment that refused to let him rest. They were like pieces of a puzzle, seemingly random, yet hinting at a deeper, more sinister pattern. Each item, each photograph, each note, was a fragment of a larger, more terrifying picture. He spent hours poring over the files, his eyes scanning the details, searching for a connection, a thread that would lead him to the heart of the mystery. The room around him seemed to close in, the walls covered in evidence, each piece demanding his attention. And slowly, agonizingly, a picture began to emerge. It was a picture painted in shadows and whispers, a mosaic of despair and loss. Each victim, he realized, was linked by a shared vulnerability. They were not just names on a list, they were people with stories, with lives that had been cruelly interrupted. They were the forgotten, the overlooked, the ones who existed on the fringes of society. Their lives were marked by hardship and neglect, their voices drowned out by the noise of the world. They carried their pain and loneliness like invisible scars, their stories etched in the lines on their faces, the slump of their shoulders. Each wrinkle, each droop of the shoulder told a tale of silent suffering. They were easy prey, their lives deemed insignificant, their disappearances barely noticed. The world moved on, indifferent to their absence, blind to the void they left behind. Black traced the outline of a photograph with his calloused thumb. The texture of the paper was rough, a stark contrast to the smooth, youthful face that stared back at him. A young woman stared back at him, her eyes filled with a quiet sadness that resonated deep within him. Her gaze seemed to reach out, pleading for someone to understand, to care. He recognized that look, the weight of the world pressing down on her slender shoulders. It was a look he had seen too many times, a look that spoke of battles fought and lost. It was the look of someone who had given up hope, someone who had accepted their fate, a fate that seemed inevitable, inescapable. And in that moment, Black knew. He knew that these weren't just random disappearances. This was a hunt, a calculated, cold-blooded hunt. These weren't just random disappearances, this was a hunt orchestrated by a mind that thrived on the suffering of others, a predator who found pleasure in the pain of the forgotten. And he was dealing with a predator who sought out the most vulnerable, the most easily forgotten, a predator who moved through the shadows unseen, unnoticed, leaving a trail of despair in their wake. Section 5. A Trail of Memories. Black's Descent into the Abyss, the Nightmare Factory. Black's investigation led him on a winding path through Arkham's underbelly, each step taking him deeper into the city's festering heart. The city was a living, breathing entity, its pulse felt in the flickering streetlights and the distant wail of sirens. He navigated labyrinthine alleyways, the stench of urine and decay clinging to his clothes, his footsteps echoing off the damp brick walls. The walls seemed to close in on him, the narrow passages a maze designed to trap the unwary. He interrogated informants in smoke-filled bars, their faces etched with fear and suspicion, their words cryptic, their glances furtive. Each conversation was a puzzle, each piece of information a fragment of a larger, more terrifying picture. Each dead end, each whispered rumor, fueled Black's obsession. The more elusive the truth became, the more determined he was to uncover it. His frustration grew, but so did his resolve. He became consumed by the case, his days and nights blurring together in a haze of stale coffee and cigarette smoke. His office became a sanctuary of sorts, a place where he could lose himself in the details, no matter how grim. Sleep offered no escape, only fragmented dreams filled with distorted faces and the echo of whispered pleas. His mind was a battlefield, the line between reality and nightmare growing ever thinner. He was losing himself in the labyrinth, the line between hunter and hunted blurring with every passing hour. The city seemed to conspire against him, its shadows hiding secrets that taunted him at every turn. He knew he was getting too close, could feel the weight of unseen eyes on his back, sense the shift in the shadows as if something was watching, waiting for him to make a mistake. Paranoia crept in, but he couldn't afford to let it take hold. But he couldn't stop, not now. The stakes were too high, the cost of failure too great. He pressed on, driven by a need that went beyond mere duty. He was driven by something primal, a need to understand the darkness, to confront the monster that lurked in the shadows. It was a battle of wills, a test of endurance, and he was determined to emerge victorious. He was a man possessed, willing to sacrifice his own sanity to bring the truth to light. The case had become his life, its dark tendrils wrapping around his soul, pulling him deeper into the abyss. But he welcomed it, for in the darkness he found his purpose.